Welcome to LMPD Partners with You. I'm Lower Marion Commissioner Scott Zelov. I'm chair of the Board of Commissioners Police Committee. And today I'm here with the Police Superintendent Michael McGrath. How are you, Mike?
Scott, well, thank you.
Today we're going to speak about the crime prevention function in the police department, something that's very important for every resident in the township. Mike, why don't we start? Tell us about the goals of the crime prevention function in the Lower Marion Police Department.
Sure. Obviously, the major goal is to reduce instances of crime throughout the township. So we try to work with our residents, our various communities, business associations, and others to prevent things such as burglaries, theft from vehicles, a wide variety of different types of activities that could occur throughout the township.
Mike, how best can a resident protect their home from burglars?
Well, that's one of the key things that the crime prevention unit does, the officers assigned to that function. Not only do we do it for homes, but we have a program where we do surveys for both businesses and residences. We will have one of our specially trained officers go out. If a resident has would like us to come out, just give us a call to the police department. We'll set up a time convenient for them and do a survey of the property. Again, that's for residences or a business. So when the officers get there, we'll take a look at the perimeter of the property, give suggestions about how to make it a little bit better for neighbors and patrolling officers to observe the property. They'll also show ways for the residents to better secure their property. Such things as how to lock, what types of locks on windows and doors are most beneficial. So that's the best thing as far as trying to prevent burglaries. Hardening, what's called hardening the target, which is better security, and also reducing the opportunity for anybody who might be casing or walking around properties to hide or obscure themselves from your neighbors or from the police patrol in the neighborhood.
That's quite a service, Mike, and I think it's worth emphasizing that the Lower Marion Police Department will come out to any residential property, any commercial property, certainly an institutional property, and do a survey and work with the property owner to come up with ways to better protect their property. And so contacting the police department at 649-1000, making an appointment, right, and a police officer will come out. That's a remarkable service for all of our property owners.
It's one of the many services provided. One of the other services similar to that is called Lock for Life. And that is, say a resident is infirmed, may not have family members that visit them frequently. We have a program where we'll be able to put a lockbox on the outside of your home that has the key for the front door. So let's say one of your elderly relatives might have a medical condition and you're concerned that something may happen. They can't unlock the front door. They have to call 911 for EMS or for a police matter. And you don't want someone to have to bust through the front door to get assistance to them.
Right.
This is a signed up program where we can access the home through this lockbox, and the police department installs and provides the service free to those residents.
And that's a program we've had in our police department for 5 or 6 years, and it works very well, and there are lots of residents who take advantage of it.
Many of them, well over 100 residents throughout the township now have that program. We first partnered with ElderNet to start that program, as you said, probably about 6 years ago.
And we can't talk about it enough because it's something that people, once they know about it and if they have that need, it's certainly something they should take advantage of.
Absolutely, and it gives them a better sense of security, particularly when they live alone.
Mike, what are some simple techniques that a property owner can use to make it much harder for a burglar?
Well, if you're going to be going away from home for, say, more than 48 hours, a couple of things you want to do is stop your mail service. You want to stop delivery of newspapers. Notify a neighbor that you're going to be away. Let them know. That way they'll have, take an extra eye and keep an eye on your property while you're gone. And if it's particularly a long period of time you're going away, it's a good idea to have somebody, relative or a friend you trust, do a property inspection every once in a while, particularly if you're going for several weeks or longer.
Let's talk about the vacant house program, another service offered by our police department. And for a homeowner who's going to be away, and you'll tell us about the minimum, but if people are going to be away, whether it's for a short trip or for an extended period of time, they should let the police department know. So how does that program work?
As you said, you're away for a while. It could be a long weekend. It could be a week, 2-week vacation. Say you're gone for the summer. What you want to do is contact, again, the police department, 649-1000. Let us know that you're away. We have a series of questions we're going to ask you. Where are you going to be? How can we contact you? Is there a local emergency contact in case there's an issue? Somebody that's nearby that come by and help us get access to the property. That goes out then to the officers assigned to patrol the area where you live. Officers will inspect the property on the date that within a day or two after you leave, just to make sure everything's okay. And then based on how long you're gone, they'll go back to the property and inspect it. So that way, your property is getting extra attention and gives you a little bit more sense of comfort that there's an extra set of eyes on your property while you're trying to enjoy your vacation.
Well, Mike, I know from personal experience that the program works because in our case, I think we contacted the police department and then were delayed in our departure on a vacation, and a police officer came by, later that day, and we hadn't left yet. And so it's a service that really can help minimize the risk of burglary and a great service for all residents in Lower Marion Township.
It is. I mean, we have different stories. For instance, officers have gone to the house on their first inspection and found that people left the front door unlocked.
Right.
So, and by having the emergency contact information, let's say you're already on your plane or you're out of state already traveling, we're able to contact your emergency contact, and they have the key, and they can come secure the door, and you can continue on your vacation without that worry.
Mike, what are some other services offered by the crime prevention function within the police department?
Well, again, just to reiterate what we already said, it's one of the good, really key ones is the security surveys. So we like our residents to make more use of that. So I'm right now making a commercial for that program. Also businesses. We don't get quite as many businesses reach out to us. One of the unfortunate things is we tend to get businesses and our residents call us after something's occurred on their property. So this is a proactive program. Why don't you give us a call ahead of time? There's certain things that we're going to recommend that people don't even think about, like just trimming their hedges and cutting back landscaping that's close to entrances and windows, those types of things. So that's just, again, the security surveys we do. We go out, our crime prevention unit also encompasses a lot of our community policing functions. So those officers, they're not just siloed in doing these crime prevention surveys or crime prevention duties. They're going out and participating in our Coffee with a Cop program. They're involved with our Citizens Police Academy, which we do a couple times a year. They supplement our training unit. They supplement actually on patrol when officers on patrol come in to do training. So the crime prevention unit officers are cross-trained to do a lot of functions within the police department.
So, Mike, expand on that a little bit, because explain to us, is the crime prevention unit a standalone function within the police department, or is it combined or part of a larger unit?
Yeah, it's part of our staff services division, and as I was laying out there, the officers in that unit are cross-trained in many functions, and it's a function. So when you call up and say, I want to speak to a crime prevention officer, you get any of 2 or 3 different officers, and they may actually be involved in training. 1 week, another week they'll be doing crime prevention duties. Or it may be somebody who's had much more of the crime prevention training, who's done the training for the surveys and that officer is somebody you'll speak to. But yeah, it's not a standalone. We're not big enough. There's some police departments in cities that have crime prevention units and function only to do that. These officers do many tasks.
And so, why do you have it organized that way? And maybe you can explain. We have the operations unit and then the staff services unit, which really is the two functions of the police department, each with a captain in charge.
It is, and just to separate the two, operations are basically what people see day in, day out.
Patrol.
Every officers doing patrol. It also encompasses our traffic safety unit and our investigations unit. So the day-to-day services you get from the Lower Marion Police Department typically come out of the operations unit. On the other side of the table is your staff services unit. They are basically the support and administrative end of the police department. So from everything from budget preparation to providing crime prevention services to doing the other programs we provide the community, like Citizens Police Academy, working with our Community Watch program, doing training internally for our police department and our officers.
Which is a very important function.
Extremely,
in the police
and
department.
very time consuming.
Yeah.
When you have 136 officers with so many different types of activities that they have to keep up their skill level on, training is a huge concern, and that all comes out of that staff services side of the police department.
And it's in difficult situations where training, we see the benefit of training. We extensively train. It's an important function in our police department, and it makes a difference, particularly at those crucial times when decisions have to be made with very little time to make them.
It really kicks in every day with the job they do, but training is very critical when it comes down to those things you do infrequently. It's often said you do the most training for the things you do the least. You better be trained for those stressful, critical issues and be prepared to address it in a quick fashion and do it the right way.
Thank you, Mike. We've been talking about the crime prevention function within the Lower Marion Police Department. I'm Lower Marion Commissioner Scott Zelov, and I'm here with Police Superintendent Michael McGrath. This has been a very informative segment on the crime prevention function in the police department. We're going to take a break. You're watching LMPD Partners with You. Welcome back to LMPD Partners with You. I'm Lower Marion Commissioner Scott Zelov. I'm chair of the Police Committee. I'm here with Lower Marion Superintendent of Police Michael McGrath, and this is going to be the second part on our crime prevention function within the police department. Mike, why don't we start this second portion of the show with some more details and getting a little more specific for our viewers. Why don't we start with doors, because doors are how a burglar is most likely to enter a house, and so, but not the only way, and we'll get to that in a moment. But what are some things that residents can do to reduce the risk of a burglar entering their home or their property through a door?
And one of the reasons that the door is the first choice is that many burglars will case a property by actually going up to the door and knocking on it. And they want to see if the home's occupied. The purpose of that is, in the vast majority of cases, burglars do not want to enter a home that is occupied. Typically what happens is if they think it's unoccupied and somebody does answer the door, they'll make up some excuse for being there. They'll give a different address, or say they're doing a survey, something like that, and they'll walk away. They really don't want to have a confrontation with the homeowner. And you won't even know that you're being set up as a victim of crime at that point. Now, let's assume, of course, they find that nobody's answering.
Right. Someone's trying and they're not home, and they go back repeatedly and nobody's home.
They'll typically knock on the front door. Now, obviously, most front doors have, usually view from, the surrounding roads and neighbors. They may walk around to the back door. To see, a lot of people, unfortunately, leave the doors unlocked. So it's not a matter of even breaking in, it's simply turning the knob and you're in the house. So the doors are your first location you want to try to make sure it's more difficult to enter the home. Clearly, locking all doors is a key when you leave your home. And as I just noted, some people don't do that. Next is, unfortunately, a lot of the locks that are put on doors aren't that solid, aren't that hardened, as we call it. So one of the benefits of having the police department come out and do a survey is we're going to especially look at the security of your locking systems. So whether we're telling you to do it or you can inspect it yourself and you see they're kind of flimsy, that's one of the first things you want to upgrade. Get a lock that has a good throw, which means the bolt goes into the door jamb more than typically 3/4 of an inch. They have to be longer than that. It might involve getting yourself a carpenter to do some of the installation to improve the security of the door. We'll look at the door jamb to make sure that that's secure as well. So you have a solid lock on a door, but the door jamb's flimsy. It doesn't take much to push it open. So that's one of the key things about doorways.
Mike, why don't we talk about specialty doors? French doors, sliding doors, sliding glass doors, double doors. So doors that can't simply be locked with a throw bolt lock.
Right, yeah. So they typically have additional security features to them. You're talking about a French door. Usually there's slide locks that you can add to them to make them more secure. For sliding doors, it's as easy as just an old broom handle and cut it to fit in the tracks and lay it right in the tracks. But you can also go to the expense and go to your local hardware store and find devices that do similar things. So yes, if you have specialty doors, you want to do a couple more things besides having a heavy-duty lock on it. And again, that's something that one of the crime prevention officers can point out to you and give you some tips on where to acquire that type of device.
So now we've talked about doors, let's go to windows. So if a burglar can or decides not to try a door, he or she is going to try a window. So what are some things that a property owner can do to reduce the risk of an entry through a window, first floor or second floor, or any floor of a property?
Now, that's a good point, because it might surprise some people listening that second floor windows are often the way they get in. Let's just talk about that first. What they'll typically do is go to the rear of a home, and a lot of times you'll have either a porch or some kind of awning or something that gives them a platform to get to the second floor of a property. They'll grab a yard chair, they'll grab a trash can or something to boost themselves up, get to the second floor. And one reason they go to the second floor is a lot of people don't bother to lock their second floor windows. Many times you leave them open a little bit just for air for the home, depending on time of year. So that's a reason they'll go to the second floor. Once again, our recommendation, particularly if you're going to be away all day at work, or certainly if you're leaving the property, going on a long extended vacation or a vacation, you have to make sure you secure all your windows. So whether it's a first or second floor window, locking them is critical. Again, a lot of the locks that are installed on these homes, they're very flimsy. So it's important to take a look at the security of your particular window and see what type of lock's on there. There's upgrades to that. Again, you might need to have a contractor come in and do that, but one of our crime prevention officers certainly can give you some tips on how to make your window more secure.
And they can do that by coming out to your home,
to the home,
as we've talked about.
There are some certain things that are real not too hard to do, and they're built into the newer windows, but we have a lot of old house stock in this township.
Yeah, let's talk about the many different types of windows, and so what homeowners can do if they have casement windows, for example, or other more somewhat unusual types of windows.
So again, there's different types of windows, much like you have French doors as far as doors go. So a casement window, it gets cranked open in some cases. They go open, slide open, those type of things. There's different locking mechanisms you can put in place so that they can't be opened completely. So that makes it harder for somebody to crawl through them. Your double hung windows, there's a way to actually drill so that you can put in an easy sliding bolt that keeps the top and bottom portion of the double hung window from being able to move beyond that center clasp that you see typically on most windows. And a lot of times that's the only type of security on some people's windows. It's not unusual for us to go to a burglary scene and find that actually they're so old or they're painted over that some of those locks don't even work on a lot of people's windows.
How about louvered windows?
Louvered windows, they're, unfortunately, they are probably some of the easiest things to get through. They can actually even be shimmied out. So they're, a lot of times burglars want to stay away from windows because they're concerned of making noise if they break it. But if they can just either pop a window, a double hung, or just take out the louvers out of a louvered window, they're going to do that because it's quiet. And sometimes they only have to do it enough to reach in and just turn a lock to fully get access to your home. So that they're not very secure windows. They're something people might want to think about replacing.
We're talking about crime prevention and the crime prevention unit in the Lower Marion Police Department. Let's move on to lighting. Very important part of lighting your house, whether you're home or not, and how to design your lighting, particularly to prevent the risk of burglary.
There's two things people can do in terms of lighting. One thing is we recommend a lot is to put motion detector lights on the exterior of your home. There's a couple benefits to that. Just for you coming and going during the day, you get home from work, and now particularly get into the fall and winter, it's dark outside. So you pull up into your driveway, you start approaching your front or back door. If you have a motion sensor light, the light illuminates your pathway to get up to your own home. So it's a safety factor for you. But also, if somebody's walking around your property at nighttime, as they approach, even before they get to your front door, the light comes on. That may be enough just to scare them away. So motion, or in that case, that's the light sensor, motion sensor, we recommend those. Another one is timers. Again, if you're out for long portions of the day or you're going on vacation, we recommend that you put a couple different lights in the house on timers. It gives the impression that the home is occupied.
Let's switch gears, Mike, and talk about landscaping. What things should homeowners do in particular with their landscaping to address, potential burglary, the potential for burglaries?
Yeah, that's one of the things that our officers find that people are surprised about. A lot of people don't even think about the landscaping. The basic principle is you want to keep your windows and your entranceways clear of shadows and overgrowth. So for instance, let's say you have hedging near the front of your homes or in front of your front windows. You want to keep them below 3 feet. That's typically the height of the window. That way somebody who might be trying to access your home can't be crouched down when the neighbor's car or the patrolling police car goes by and be obscured from being seen. So you want to keep the hedges low. You want to get them back away from the doorway so that somebody can't, again, be obscured from sight and be, in the shadows while they're either waiting to get in or potentially even, assaulting somebody as they're coming home. So one of the keys is basically good maintenance of your landscaping. Keep them down. If you have trees that are starting to grow and they're coming down to the branches are almost in the ground, we suggest they be at least 7 foot high off the ground. Not only is that good for light and reducing shadows, but it also keeps you from running into a situation where you might walk into a branch, and reduce lighting yourself. So again, 3 foot hedges, 7 foot high on the branches.
And so really you're saying don't provide a place for a burglar to hide or to be obscured. So be aware of your landscaping as you're thinking about how to protect your house.
And one of the things about that is burglars, when they're going casing neighborhoods, they're looking for those places that have the overgrown landscaping. If they see a well-maintained property or a well-lit property, they're just going to drive right on by it and look for the ones that don't look like they're so well kept.
Mike, we need to wrap up. Any other practices you want to mention and how property owners can reduce burglary potential?
The key is, know your neighborhood. If you know your neighborhood better than anybody else. So if you see something suspicious, you know your neighbors are away for a while, you see newspapers in your neighbor's driveway, be a good neighbor. Go over there, collect them. You see the mailbox overflowing with mail, grab your neighbor's mail and, return it to them when they return. But the important thing is there's a lot of services available from your police department. Let us know when you're going away. We'll do the vacant house checks for you, and working together will help make your neighborhood and your life a lot easier.
And never hesitate to call 911 if you see something that's unusual or suspicious on your property or in your neighborhood.
Absolutely. You're the best judge of that. You live there.
We've been talking about crime prevention in Lower Marion. I'm Commissioner Scott Zelov, Chair of the Police Committee. I'm with Mike McGrath, who's our Police Superintendent. You've been watching LMPD Partners with You. Thanks, Mike.